Today I'm going to talk to you about shooting in low light and no light. One of the advantages that we have with the digital cameras today is that they're very good in low light. Most cameras you can shoot at a very high ISO and suffer very little in terms of noise. Most of the time I'm doing a news job, so I don't really have time to set up a tripod and all that. I end up shooting at a high ISO, usually around between an 1/8 and a 30th of a second and wide open. I also employ a couple techniques to battle camera shake, because I am, for the most part, hand holding it. I might brace myself against something before I push. I find that when you push the shutter just once, you get a little bit of camera shake. So what I'll do is I'll just push and I'll get a burst. And I find that usually the first frame is a little bit soft because of motion, and then the second and third frames are usually a little bit sharper. The big challenge when shooting low light and no light is finding light somewhere. And the best kind of light to find in those kind of situations is reflective light. Water is a great reflector of lights, whether it be a lake, a river, or the cement outside your building on a rainy day. They all reflect light. So it's important to have light behind the scene which you're photographing so that anything that's wet in front of you gets reflected. During the heat wave, a lot of these city pools were open late at night. And I went down to the western beaches near Sunnyside and looked for weather features there. But what I found is that there were so many people out and about and active around the water. I found those pictures way more compelling than anything I shot at the pool. It was amazing how many people were using that area. To capture that light, I made sure to find a place I could shoot into that sunset, but I had water to separate a subject from the background. As people arrived home, they turned on their lights. So it added this little mystical feel to the pictures. You can use objects that usually steal light away from you as a feature in the picture. For instance, a tree might help make that person walking by a silhouette. And then you can also use the lower branches of that tree as a framing element in the frame. There's a challenge to balance different kinds of light sources so that you can make a picture. And in this ice cream truck picture is a perfect example. We have light coming from the ice cream truck that illuminates the people in line. And you have to balance the sky so you have something to separate, so it's just not an ice cream truck in a black background. I probably could have shot this at about a 500th of a second at 2.8 at ISO 3200 and had a really nice picture of the ice cream truck. But I would not have had any of the blue sky detail that I have in it. Instead, I cut the shutter speed down to about a 200th of a second at 2.8 at ISO 3200. And that small change allowed me to balance the sky and not blowing away the whites on the ice cream truck. After the birth of Prince George, the CN Tower was turned blue for the night to signal that it was a boy. So I went down to Polson Pier, and you're trying to find ways to make the picture a little bit more interesting by adding a human element to it. Thankfully, there are a lot of people that go down there all the time to shoot the city. And it was just a matter of lining up that person with the bright lights of the city. There's lots of light, and it's a perfect place to put somebody so that you separate them from the water. 3 things to consider when you do low light photography. Know your camera and its ISO capabilities. If you don't have a tripod, consider how steady you can shoot at and what the slowest shutter speed you can use is. And finally, are there any light sources that you can steal light from?